You're going to start using it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so,
We are.
all right, so then we're going to pour the solutions in. What we want to do is put our racks in here.
If you don't mind, I have them to your left.
And that's basically it. You want to again make sure that these don't rock
Yeah.
back and forth. If they rock back and
Is it gonna
forth,
stop at a certain height?
then that means they're unlevel and you need to straighten it out.
9 minutes.
And that's basically it. Now we can add our developer. They're usually, sometimes they're not color coded. So what I would tell you to do with all of them is just read the label. Make sure it says developer or fixer. All right. Now, another important step here is to add chemical to this. There's a procedure. So even though this is first, we want to put fixer in here first before we put developer. The reason why we want to put fixer in there first is because all it takes is 3 drops of fixer into the developer and it kills it. The developer is no good. So you don't want to splash that into your developer. So basically one way of preventing it is with putting the lid on here like that. That helps. We can take our developer.
And then developer lid has writing on it. DEV
Right.
stands for developer. We don't want to even mix the lids up.
Now, here's another thing. When you take this stuff off,
If it's old, we have a new one. There's a new gallon too, so we don't have to use it.
well, it's been opened.
It'll get crushed in.
It's been opened, so, but the chemical itself is good. The thing you want to do is when you take these off, when you peel this label off and stuff, take it all off. Don't leave it on, because you see that crusty stuff? That's what happens. Now, if you had the lid off of there, or the stuff off of there, that would have never happened. And we just pour that in.
How you know we stop?
Right. Well, you stop or you run all over the floor. No, I'm kidding. Usually, typically, when it gets to the top of the rollers, then it's time to stop.
Shantae, next line.
So when it covers the top of the rollers, then that usually tells you it's time to stop. Now,
Think like a dental assistant.
with that being said, there is an overflow on those. So you can't really overfill it because it will go out to waste.
So do we need to use our first gallon as our, what am I trying to say? Used receptacle?
Yes. So either use that as your catch receptacle, or sometimes they'll have a collection tank down below collecting that. So do we have that? We don't.
No.
Okay, so
Is it going to be too heavy to use the one you have? Is it gonna, if we set it up,
this.
I wonder if it's going to fall over.
What's that? This?
Mm-hmm, the one,
Well,
the empty one. Will it work okay?
Yeah, it
Without
should.
falling over?
What I'm gonna do is put it inside that bucket over there too.
Okay.
And there's a bucket down here. Now this is the overflow or the drain for the fixer. We only have to collect the fixer, like I said. The developer doesn't have to be collected, just the fixer. I'll put that in that bucket in a little bit.
Well,
So
Shantae,
anything
good
that
for
goes
you now.
over the overflow will actually be collected into that bottle right there. When you drain it, it'll collect into that bottle.
She's thinking like a dental assistant. She knows it needs to be done, so she's just taking the initiative. Thank you,
Very good.
Shantae.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's see how it looks.
Okay, so we've added our developer. The next add to this now is the fixer.
we added our
And the
fixer.
fixer now. The next is developer. I'm sorry.
Fixer, developer, washer.
So fixer is labeled FIX and it has the blue lid. Developer is the one that was DEV, red lid.
Like I said, in the real world, this is all set up so you have these color codes. But a lot of times in the real world, they're all the bottles are just labeled with black lettering, and one says developer, one says fixer. So make sure you always read it. And there we are.
Just enough to cover the rollers.
So we're up to the rollers, which means our film is going to go in between those rollers, which means it's going to be submerged into the solution. And now we are set and ready to,
Ready to use it?
well, we're going to wait till it gets the temperature.
Warm up. We need, I think, 68 degrees.
You can turn this on,
263.
and that temperature thing will automatically do its thing right now. So once it shuts off, that tells us we're ready to go. Okay? These are our times on our film. 4.5 is a typical intraoral film. 6 is for a pan. You can do it at 4.5, but if you notice your pan's a little light, then bump it up to 6. That just increases the time. And we also have another program on here called the Endo Mode. What the Endo Mode does is it allows us to take a film and run it through the processor very quick, because when you're doing endo, they want to see what's going on with that file and where it's at. So you're going to run it through a little bit quicker. Now those films, when you run them through, may come out a little bit tacky or wet. So it's going to be important that you don't touch the middle of the film. You use a hanger or something like that to capture that plate and hold on to it till the doctor examines it. Once they examine it, you can actually run it back through the processor again as normal, like 4.5, and that will make that film archivable at that point. Fixed at the endo will not be an archivable film. It will go bad if you don't do it again. Okay? And basically that's all there is.
Could you explain about, so our fixer is going to collect automatically.
Right. Well, it will collect with when you go ahead and clean the processor. You're going to dump these chemicals out. It'll collect into that bottle down there. Once that bottle's full, you have to set it aside, put another bottle down there to capture anything that's left. So you're going to keep rotating your bottles. What I usually tell everybody is get the collection tank. Call a company that will actually come and collect the waste and dispose of it properly. Developer is okay if it goes down the drain, because it doesn't have any compounds in it that's going to hurt anything, and the chemical can be broken down. What's really interesting about the developer and fixer, both chemicals makeup is 90% water. So only 10% of the chemical that's in those is a fixer or developer, but 90% is water. So, and then, so 4.5 is typical. When you're ready to process a film, you hit run, and it's ready to go. You hear that click? Those are the racks locking into place. So at this point, we're actually ready to run a film through. Do we have any cleaning film or anything we can run through here?
Let me find.
Or maybe it's just a piece of, it's probably, you'd have to expose it.
I mean, I could.
Film. Or you got PA out there?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Could you, Markel, look on the demo table and bring one of those, or 2 of those film packets, please, real quick. Do not, they're already out. White film packets like I just passed out to everyone.
Now you will get some strange things sometimes when there's some issues with the processor. If you see things, images on your film that are darker or dark spots or edges, usually that tells you that the film has been exposed to light somehow.
Thank you.
Because it's exposed to light, it will turn black.
Test question.
So when the film like this is exposed to light, it will turn black. So when it comes out, it'll be completely black. Now, if I put the other film through here that has not been exposed to light, it will come out clear.
Test question.
Okay? So an exposed film will be black, unexposed film will be clear. And the only way you're going to get an unexposed film is you have to open this up in the dark. It has to be completely blackened or have a safe light.
Yep.
Now, like this one here.
So unexposed means no radiation ever hit it.
Right.
So you
Now-
just put one in by mistake that you never.
With
Used.
that being said, last week I had a doctor call me up and he says my x-ray is not working. I said to him, how do you know your x-ray is not working? Well, my film is coming out completely clear. And I'm like, okay, well, that's probably a good sign that the x-ray is not working. But I want you to do this. Go inside the dark room and make sure you have developer in your processor. Okay? Guess what? Somebody pulled the plug, there was no developer in there. So the film was just running through dry, and that's why it came out the way it did. There was nothing wrong with his x-ray. So I saved him a service call by not having to go there to do that, simply by telling him to look at the processor. So don't always assume that the x-ray is bad if you get a blank film. Check your processor first and make sure the chemical's good. Even if the chemical's dead in the processor, you may get a very pale looking film. It may be a little bit opaque to it, but it won't be. You won't be able to see completely through it. Again, that may mean your developer fixer or developer is bad. If you take the 3 drops of fixer and add it into the developer, guess what happens?
It's not even ammonia.
Exactly. You create an ammonia smell, which is very pungent and very powerful. So you know that something happened in there. Something got into the developer and killed it.
I have one thing I just thought about. The water valve. Is our water valve on? Does it need to be?
No, it'd be a
Changed.
good idea. Yeah, we can go ahead and turn that on.
So that we'll need to do.
Yeah, you'll need to turn that on
Okay.
every day.
So do we
Yeah,
see
and,
where he just turned that on? Dark room duty. That's your job.
You hear it running?
You have dark room as your duty. You'll be responsible to turn that water on, turn our processor on, check the fluid to make sure everything's topped off at the start of our day.
And once the processor stops running, and it's not processing film, but it's still on, it will shut this electronic solenoid off. So it will stop the water going through the rack. And each time you start it again, it'll open that solenoid up. But it's very important that you turn the valve off each night, simply because without this valve being off, you still have water to this position. If this valve should fail and this hose pop off, guess what? You have water all over everything. So you want to make sure you turn that valve off every night.
Bob's given us a lot of useful information for our day-to-day use, as well as our certification exam.
We get a nice dry image. Sometimes when you're cleaning the processor too, they usually have some cleaning film that you can put through here, and that will pick up any of the little lint or anything that collects on the rollers. it really uses a sticky emulsion which collects that stuff, so when you put your film through, they come out nice and clean.
Order some clean film.